One morning in New York, the heart of American finance went silent. Traders across Wall Street logged in to begin another day, only to find their screens frozen, blank, and unresponsive. Billions of dollars in trades vanished into thin air. Retirement funds, college savings, and everyday investments all hung in limbo. In that instant, America's financial fortress seemed to crack wide open. Before we dive in, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. And don't forget to subscribe to this channel. Your support is what keeps us bringing you chilling, educational stories about the dark world of cybercrime. Now sit back, because this is not just a story. It's a warning of how fragile even the mightiest systems can be. Let's begin. It was a Tuesday morning. The sun had just crept above Manhattan's skyline, casting golden reflections off the glass towers of Wall Street. Traders streamed into skyscrapers, coffee in hand, ready to seize another day. The U.S. stock market, worth trillions, was a heartbeat of not just America, but of the world. By 9:30 a.m., the New York Stock Exchange's opening bell rang. Normally, a symphony of clicking keyboards and ringing phones would follow. But within minutes, something felt wrong. On trading floors, screens flickered, went black, and rebooted in endless loops. At first, brokers thought it was just another software glitch. Then calls started pouring in from banks, hedge funds, and retail investors. From Miami to Los Angeles, clients couldn't access their accounts. Billions of dollars in buy and sell orders hung in the void. The financial lifeblood of America had suddenly flatlined. Panic spread. Some traders tried switching to backup systems. Others grabbed landline phones. But the problem wasn't local. It was everywhere. And then came the realization. This wasn't an accident. This was a coordinated attack. The first victims were ordinary investors. A retired teacher in Ohio stared helplessly at her blank laptop, wondering if her pension savings had evaporated. A father in Texas, saving for his daughter's college, couldn't check his brokerage account. Small businesses that depended on credit lines were suddenly frozen. It wasn't just about Wall Street. It was about Main Street. And across America, fear began to rise. News networks broke the story within the hour. Anchors described it as the biggest financial system outage in modern history. Markets couldn't function. Billions were stuck mid-transaction. At the White House, advisors rushed into the Situation Room. Was this a foreign nation-state attack? Was America under digital siege? The word Cyber Pearl Harbor echoed in hushed tones. Meanwhile, hackers on the other side of the world, young, hidden behind screens in dingy apartments and co-working spaces, watched the chaos unfold like a movie premiere. For them, this was their masterpiece. The FBI's cyber division was pulled in almost immediately. Their mission: trace the breach. Where did it start? Who had the capability to do this? Initial evidence suggested the hackers had slipped into the network weeks earlier, planting malicious code in places no one would think to look. Like termites inside a mansion, they hollowed out the system from within. Investigators discovered fragments of custom malware disguised as routine software updates. These weren't off-the-shelf tools. This was handcrafted digital weaponry, built to exploit the unique architecture of America's financial systems. But here's the chilling part. No ransom note appeared. No demand were made. The attackers didn't want money. Not yet. They wanted control, chaos, and fear. Viewers, pause for a moment and think about this. Money makes the world spin. But what happens when money itself becomes unreachable? Tell me in the comments. How would you react if you woke up tomorrow and couldn't access your bank account? At first, suspicion fell on foreign adversaries. The U.S. had been warning for years about cyber threats from hostile nations. Could this be the work of a state-sponsored attack meant to destabilize the economy? But then came an unexpected twist. Forensic analysts traced part of the malicious code to a tool set previously associated with an underground hacker collective known as Black Spire. This group wasn't a government agency. They were independent, scattered across the globe, connected only by encrypted chat rooms and a shared hunger to prove themselves. Black Spire was infamous in dark web circles. They didn't just hack, they made statements. And their symbol? A shattered $sign, scrawled across the face servers and leaked documents. Investigators were baffled. Why would a ragtag group of young hackers target the most fortified financial system on Earth? And more importantly, how did they succeed? As FBI agents dug deeper, they began piecing together the profiles of the hackers. Most were in their 20s, digital natives who had grown up in the shadow of the 2008 financial crisis. Many had seen their parents lose jobs, homes, or savings. To them, Wall Street wasn't a symbol of opportunity. It was the villain. In encrypted group chats later uncovered, members of Black Spire called themselves the architects of balance. They claimed the attack wasn't theft, it was justice. But was it really justice? Or was it ego, revenge, and intoxicating thrill of power? One hacker bragged online, "We've done what armies could not. We silenced Wall Street." For investigators, these words weren't just chilling. They were a challenge. As hours passed, the outage rippled across the economy. International markets trembled. European and Asian exchanges, deeply tied to U.S. financial systems, braced for impact. The Federal Reserve scrambled to reassure the public, insisting that assets were safe, that backups existed. But ordinary people weren't convinced. When ATMs began running dry in certain cities, lines formed. Fear of a bank run loomed. Wall Street wasn't just money. It was trust. And once trust cracks, panic becomes a real enemy. Behind the scenes, cyber units race against time. They had to find the kill switch. The digital bomb lodged inside the financial networks. But every attempt to flush it out triggered new traps. The hackers had planned this like a chess game, always 3 moves ahead. By nightfall, America realized this wasn't just a technical glitch. It was an existential threat to the economy itself. And then, just as investigators thought they had traced the breach to an overseas server farm, something shocking happened. The hackers sent their first direct message, not to the government, not to the FBI, but to the American people. Broadcasted through hijacked financial news tickers, the message read, "Your money is no longer yours. This is only the beginning." The nation held its breath when the words, "Your money is no longer yours. This is only the beginning," flashed across hijacked financial news tickers. America froze. It wasn't just fear anymore, it was humiliation. Someone out there had pierced the armor of Wall Street. And now, they were taunting the entire nation. The FBI Cyber Division, NSA analysts, and financial security teams doubled their efforts. They knew this wasn't just about money. This was psychological warfare. The hackers wanted to break trust. And if trust collapsed, the economy itself would collapse. Inside the Situation Room, officials debated the unthinkable. Should they shut down all financial systems completely to prevent further damage? Or would that only confirm the hackers' power? Meanwhile, millions of Americans stayed glued to their screens. Parents checked their bank accounts every 5 minutes. Seniors worried about their pensions. The nation was paralyzed. The investigation entered overdrive. Cyber forensics teams sifted through terabytes of corrupted code. Each time they got close, the hackers unleashed their versions. False IP addresses pointing to random locations, decoy servers filled with junk data, and misleading trails leading investigators in circles. But then a breakthrough. A junior analyst at the FBI noticed a tiny slip-up in the malicious code. A timestamp in one of the scripts didn't match the others. While most were masked with UTC formatting, one bore a regional setting, Eastern European Time. It was a small crack in the mask, but enough to start narrowing the net. Through international cooperation, law enforcement traced fragments of the infrastructure to rented servers in Romania, Estonia, and even New Jersey. Black Spire wasn't one group sitting in a single room. They were scattered, a decentralized hive of hackers working together across borders. But they weren't invincible. They were human, and humans make mistakes. Weeks into the chaos, investigators honed in on one suspect, a 23-year-old college dropout named Adrian Kovac. Online, he was known as Specter. He had a history of dabbling in financial fraud and bragging about his skills in underground forums. Kovac lived in a cramped apartment in Bucharest. Agents worked with Romanian authorities to stage a midnight raid. When they stormed his place, they found laptops, flash drives, and handwritten notes with sketches of Wall Street system architecture. But here's the twist. Specter wasn't the mastermind. He was just a cog in the machine. And when pressed under interrogation, he gave up a chilling detail. We weren't after money. We were after trust. And trust is gone. While Kovac's arrest was a victory, investigators realized they were only scratching the surface. Black Spire had many layers, and at the center of it all was a figure known only as Cipher. Cipher was meticulous, brilliant, and paranoid. He never logged in from the same device twice. He used voice masking software, encrypted networks, and layers of fake identities. But Cipher had one weakness: pride. In a private chat later exposed by investigators, he wrote to his team, "History books won't remember Wall Street traders. They'll remember us." And that pride became his downfall. Analysts matched his writing style to old hacker manifestos from nearly a decade earlier. Cross-referencing patterns, they narrowed Cipher's true identity to a 29-year-old former software engineer in Seattle. His name was Ethan Marshall. Marshall had once worked for a financial software contractor. He knew the inside-out vulnerabilities of systems designed to guard billions. But after losing his job and watching his family sink into debt, he turned his knowledge into a weapon. In a joint operation, FBI agents staged a quiet surveillance around Marshall's Seattle apartment. For weeks, they monitored his movements. He rarely left, living off delivered groceries. His life revolved around glowing screens. Finally, on a rainy Thursday morning, they made their move. Agents breached the door, finding Marshall hunched over 3 laptops, lines of code still running. Startled, he tried to hit a kill switch, but one agent slammed his hand down before he could wipe the drives. On his desk, a sticky note bore just 2 words: "Trust burned." Marshall was taken into custody. The news spread quickly. Black Spire had been dismantled, at least its core leadership, but the damage had already been done. Wall Street systems eventually came back online. No accounts were permanently lost, but the scars remained. For weeks, markets remained volatile. Investors pulled back, fearing another blackout. Banks spent billions upgrading cybersecurity. And in living rooms across America, people whispered the same chilling question: if it happened once, could it happen again? Congress held hearings. Experts testified that America's financial system was both powerful and fragile, an empire built on code that could, in theory, be undone by a handful of hackers. And in the shadows of the internet, copycats studied Black Spire's playbook, eager to replicate the chaos. Psychologists who studied the case noted how deeply personal motives can drive cybercrime. For some, like Adrian Kovac, it was about proving their skill. For others, like Ethan Marshall, it was vengeance, a way to lash out against a system they believed had betrayed them. But in the end, it wasn't just about hackers versus institutions. It was about all of us. Because trust, once shaken, takes years to rebuild. The story of Black Spire wasn't just about code or money. It was about the invisible thread that ties society together. The belief that when you log in, your money is safe, your future is secure. And that day in New York, America learned how fragile that thread really was. Thank you for staying with us through the end of this chilling story. The Wall Street blackout wasn't just a cyber attack. It was a reminder that in a world run by code, the greatest weapon isn't always a bomb or a gun. Sometimes it's just a few lines of malicious code. If this story made you think, please hit that like button, share your thoughts and comments below, and most importantly, subscribe to this channel. Because it's your support that keeps us motivated to keep bringing you chilling, educational true crime stories from the dark side of the internet. Stay safe, stay vigilant, and until next time, this is BYTE Crimes.